Hi.
Florence, and we are in Tuscany in Chianti, in the place I've been staying at, and I know you've seen all about it. But I thought it would be such a good time for us just to sit down and talk about all things yoga. Maybe we'll talk about our philosophies on yoga, and also try and relate it to any trainings that we're going to do in the future, because you might want to know a bit more about that, and hopefully you'll get an insight to the way that we think, because most of it you'll know, but there might be a few surprises along the way. So we're just going to drink some good wine, and we have a fire because it's freezing outside today, and we're just going to talk about yoga.
Just nice to talk in front of the fireplace.
Yeah, it's the Italian way, and if we do trainings out here, that's why I really fell in love with Italy for doing that, is it's just a place that you want to stay. The first time I came here was last year. I did workshops here, and we just came out for one day to Chianti, to your place, and it's like one of the places where the scenery looks like the painting does.
I remember you were, like a kid seeing something for the first time, because it's so... I think it's so exciting. I mean, I am used to this, but it's like when I go to the US, everything is new to me. So I think coming from another part of the world and seeing this beauty is great. But there's not only the beauty, but the different life, different take on life.
Yeah, because it's normal to everyone here. Like people who live in this area, and it's just, they appreciate the beauty, but it's normal to you because your childhood was here. But for me, I'd seen photos of Tuscany, and it's just like exactly like that. So you started doing yoga in Florence, right?
I did. It was around 20 years ago, I only knew about a student of Iyengar. So Iyengar had this student for a few years called Vanda Scaravelli. She's very famous. You can find her quotes on internet. Is very famous. And anyway, I knew that a student of this woman, she was dead already at the time, a student of this woman was in Florence teaching yoga. So I asked to a friend of a friend about the phone number, and I called her, and then I went to study with her for a few years, and then I changed many other styles. So this was a very very gentle approach.
Was Iyengar yoga, right?
Yes, but not even, because this Vanda Scaravelli, she developed a method that is even softer, like almost yin.
Okay.
And anyway, I studied with this woman, this student of Vanda, for a few years, and then I explored other styles. Iyengar, like classical Iyengar style. There are two very good schools in Florence of Iyengar yoga, and then Ashtanga, all the what I think are more traditional methods. And then I studied, of course, around the world, some workshops, and I tried to, see the more modern side of yoga too. And I tried in my classes, I try to bring everything together.
Yeah, I think that's such a similarity between both of our backgrounds, because you had that origin in the more traditional yoga, and I did too. Growing up in Africa with my mom being she was an Iyengar yoga teacher, so that's all I did at the start. It's all I really knew yoga was. I didn't know that there was all this other stuff. So it really gives you this foundation that's rooted in the traditions of yoga, but it doesn't cut any corners, because those traditional styles, they kind of, maybe there's flaws in them that we can argue from modern science, but they are very purist, and they don't cut any corners in yoga. They focus on the limbs, they give you a very comprehensive background, but they're a bit sort of stuck in their ways, and that can make them less exciting for people. So for me, when I discovered vinyasa yoga and handstands and arm balances, it was like I was a kid in the candy shop. And then I was able to explore those, but by having that origin in Iyengar yoga, I was very conscious of alignment, awareness, the other aspects of yoga. Because I think a lot of people come into like vinyasa and they don't even know that they're other limbs of yoga. They just think it's all about the physical exercise.
Yeah, I think we're lucky to have this foundation because, when I started, there wasn't Instagram, and now I sound already like an old guy, but I think it's different if you start today. And of course, Instagram and all the social media are great resources, so you see, what is possible, you see a lot of fun stuff, but what it may, be a flaw of starting yoga like that. If you wanna do, if you start because of the handstand, or if you start because you wanna do a cool picture, of course you lack all the foundation, all the stuff that can be boring, but it's so important. So I feel lucky that I started. I didn't start because I wanted to teach, or I didn't start because I wanted to have a good body. I started because I was attracted to yoga, not even knowing what it was. But I feel lucky because you have all these foundations that you can't get in a short amount of time. You need some time, like everything.
Yeah, I think it makes you. You're not just looking for the glamorous things. It's like you do it because you just know that it's good for you, and you've come to it not because of the shiny things like the handstands, but it's almost like the reverse now, because I feel like what I do is a lot of the students that I captivate, it's through the shiny things, but then I hope that by being students of mine, I can bring them towards the foundational things. And I think that's like almost the way that yoga is now, is you have to like take these students who might have come for the arm balances or the good body or to get flexible, and now bring them and attract them to the foundational sides of yoga.
That's not even necessarily bad either, because a teacher of mine told your asana practice is like your card, your business card. Because that is true. I mean, of course, if you are a yoga teacher, there are many around, so you have to, tell people who you are. Of course, you can, do like this, talk and try to get known better, but your asana practice, so your handstand picture or your other asana posture picture is, something that people will look, so there's nothing, bad about it. But yes, I agree that, of course, yoga is not only postures, it's a philosophy, it's a discipline. So I would like to, if I teach something to anybody, I just want to try to give at least the idea that there is something else, not only postures. If not, we can do gymnastics, and so that's not it.
So with us doing, say, let's talk about a 200-hour first. If we do a 200-hour together, what do you think would be your things that you want to make sure that you're setting new teachers up with? So these might be people who've been doing yoga for a long time. Some of them might have been doing it for a month, fell in love with it, and now they say, I want to come and do a 200-hour to be a teacher.
So of course, in the 200 hours, in a nutshell, I hope we want to give the foundations. So basic stuff. What is yoga?
I keep talking, I'm going to get some more wine.
What is yoga? How to teach a basic yoga class. And I think it's a good point to understand, in the 200 hours, you can have the person that is, almost an expert on yoga, that practiced a lot, that read a lot of books already, that practiced with different teachers for many years, or you have the newbie, the person that does yoga since fell in love with yoga, but is very recent thing, no 1 or 2 months. Of course, in that case, I think the goal of the training and the goal of the person that wants to do the training must not be to be a teacher, after 2 months of practicing, but to deepen so much their practice, because it was like this in my 200 hours. We discussed this also, I think, in your 200 hours. In a short amount of time, it can be a transformative experience, because you practice so hard every day, you learn so many things, you go so deep in your practice that it changes a lot. And so hopefully you can know much more about yoga and its foundation. That said, maybe you won't be an expert teacher in 1 month or two, but so in the case of a non-expert student, for sure you can deepen so much your practice. But you also want to offer to the expert student, the person that studied so much for 10 years but maybe doesn't know how to vocalize, doesn't know how to teach a class, has some flaws here and there. Also, to that person you want to give the foundations. So what are the foundations? To me, very simple things. Being able to answer the question, what is yoga? That seems almost stupid, no? But a lot of people, cannot give a definition. And so only that, so that definition can be short, but you can talk for hours about what yoga is. So I would say my goal in the teacher training is always, at least it was in the past teacher training, to give that, knowing what yoga is, more or less. And then being able to teach a class, a basic class, and if you're good at that, build on that, so being able to change the class, but a normal vinyasa class, and knowing a little bit of the other foundations, so philosophy, Sanskrit, a little bit of anatomy, ethics, this fields, having a well-rounded knowledge. Of course, in 200 hours you won't be able to go super deep, but you have the time to clarify some very important details, some important foundations.
Yeah, I think that's all. You probably explained that better than I would, but I definitely agree with those. I'm not going to say them again because you just covered them, but I think, yeah, that's definitely right. People are going to come into this with a different range of experience. Some of them might have been teaching they might have been doing yoga longer than us, and they might know a wealth more in different areas because there's so much knowledge in yoga. But, so it's almost like we're going to share that information on yoga, whether it's philosophy, anatomy, all of that. But some people might already know that, some people might have never heard it before, but it's all going to contribute to your knowledge, which you'll keep growing for the rest of your life. 200 hours is not enough time to become an expert in a subject, doesn't matter what that subject is.
Of course.
So I think for me, the things I would add on there, one of the main things that I want to give students is to be confident at teaching. Because even if you've been studying yoga for decades, if you've never taught before, there's certain things that you will gain through experience that make teaching more accessible. So being able to vocalize in a particular way, the type of language you use, your body language, your ethics, how you conduct yourself, how you tie cues and words together, things like that which don't come as second nature to most people. It usually comes as experience through teaching. And a lot of these things are universal, not just in yoga. It's if you were a lecturer at a university, if you were teaching a class in high school, there are a lot of things that you need to learn when you switch from that mindset of a student to a teacher. So I think it's empowering people and giving them the confidence, because I think in a lot of these 200 hours, people do the opposite. They get given a bunch of information. Here's all this anatomy, here's all this philosophy, but they don't focus enough on building confidence in the teachers. So these people graduate, they leave, and then they don't have the confidence to go and stand up in front of a group of people and confidently express their words, their classes, structure a class, And that's really what I want to make sure I deliver, is giving people the confidence to know, hey, I can structure this class and these are the types of instructions I'll use, cues, and it'll come out seamlessly with confidence. Yeah.
It's so important because we tried to do that in the past trainings that we did, because maybe you practice for many years, you're great at yoga, your practice looks great, but then when it comes the moment in which you go to the other side, you become a teacher, it, for some people, not for everybody, but I would say for 90% of the people, and it was like that for me at the beginning, I really wasn't able to put two words together, because you don't have any idea of how to cue. Like, these things are you can learn, it's a skill, it's you learn a few simple tricks that we can give in the training, like how to cue simply, just verb, body part, this kind of things. And also, when you learn this basic stuff, we discussed this a little bit, you go into the more I think subtle but important stuff, like giving a direct cue, because we see that a lot in teachers that are also famous teachers, that they use very descriptive, very poetic cueing, and
it's not as effective.
Yeah, some people may like it, but it's not as effective. And again, it's back to the basic. When you start to when you learn something very simple, then you can forget about it, you can change it. But I think it's important to have these simple rules at the beginning. Simple way to cue, a simple way to teach a class. Then you want to be fancy, go be fancy.
Yeah.
But it's very good to have a solid base. It's like dancers, in modern dance, you see very weird movements and something that is very disruptive compared to the past. But most of the good dancers, they know the basics, they know the classical ballet. So I wanna try to give this in the training, the good old ballet stuff, in yoga, the good old school yoga. Then you do whatever you want in modern yoga, but
and you need that. And I think, like, when I did my 200-hour, just so all of you know, I had been teaching for 5 years before then, because I had been trained in the Iyengar background, but I wanted that Yoga Alliance 200-hour certification, so I did a training. And some of the students, when we were practicing, I would hear, and this hopefully it refines out, but it was such flowery, flamboyant language where, let's take a simple instruction, it was blossom your something and breathe into, and it's just too much. And one of the simplest things I was taught, or I like to teach, is, just like you were saying, a verb, a body part, and a direction. Lift your arms up. Like, that's such a simple thing to say. You don't have to overcomplicate that.
Yeah.
If you want to spice it up a little bit when you've experienced that a little bit, fine, but to have that solid foundation is so important, and these trainings really need to reinforce that, because some people who are advanced students think that the more they can communicate, the more anatomy they can say, the better it's going to be, but it's not.
But the metaphor of spice is very good. Like, when you cook, spice, you have to really use it very little, because spice, with little spice, the you have already a lot of flavor. If you put the whole spoonful of spice in your soup, you're gonna ruin it. And so yes, for example, a very simple thing that I hear a lot, that sometimes sometimes maybe I can say it slips, like, as you exhale, do this, instead of just saying exhale, do this.
Yeah.
So that thing, if I hear as I exhale, I have to think a little bit. You know what I mean? I have to think, what does it mean as I exhale? That I do that because of the exhale, or during the exhale I start to exhale? And my mind starts to wander. So if I can keep it, this is just a stupid example, but if I can keep it as simple as possible, you know, exhale this, inhale that, exhale do this, inhale do that, as simple as possible. It might not sound as nice, but it's the most effective thing. And so try to rethink everything, because also every one of us has its own pacifier, you know, something that you say because you feel the awkwardness of the moment,
like, or
exactly, or whatever. Everybody, or there is someone that says always the same word over and over, or they say beautiful, everybody, things like that, no? So it's, I think in the foundation we should try to get rid of all this pacifiers.
I think it's good. A good way to see it is, it's like you need to hold a mirror up to yourself. Because something that I found when I filmed myself a lot, when you're a teacher and you film online, you actually see yourself and you hear those words. And I would watch myself and be like, why do I always say "and then"? It's an irrelevant thing to say. It's completely superfluous.
Things like that.
So you can you have to become aware of them, and hopefully on a teacher training, we would help you see that, but also hold a mirror up to you so that you're able to see that about yourself and refine yourself.
That's why it's a little bit a psychological journey, a transformative journey, because sometimes maybe you feel simple things like that. If I say to you, you know, maybe you say, if I give you feedback and I say you say too much, and then maybe, you know, it can feel an attack to you, to who you are, no, because you say it a lot, is your pacifier. So it's hard sometimes to get that feedback, but it's good if you understand it and if you try to get rid of it. And so in the training we would hopefully give a lot of feedback. So I like to do that a lot, to see, you know, the students and the new teachers teach something and then give feedback. You know, I would take notes and I would give feedback on everything, on the pace, on the how you move, you were saying before, body language. All these things are so important.
Sorry, I just have to reset the camera. Yeah, I think feedback is important, and when you're in a group of people, you're going to, I think Iyengar said, it was something along the lines of, if you see a mistake in somebody else, look to see it yourself if you're making the same mistake. And teacher training is exactly that. It's not just about you. Yes, your ego might get hurt sometimes if you suddenly are aware of something that you do, a habit, but you're also going to see the same experience in other students, and then you can look at yourself and make sure that you don't necessarily repeat those habits later on down the line. But something I'm really big on as well in these trainings or helping new teachers is removing all of that excess stuff and refining yourself does not mean you give away your personality.
No.
And I think people get confused with that, because on these trainings, especially with new teachers, you hear the way they teach almost sounds like a robot. And I think initially that might happen, but as you build confidence, you learn how to fuse, just like the spice. You don't want it to be so overwhelming, but you can fuse your personality into it, because that's what's going to set you apart from other teachers in the future. Like if you're somebody who has a great background and you feel like your personality is whatever, you will be able to connect with certain people in a way that other teachers can't, because of that common thing. Maybe you're a certain personality type, maybe you have a history in something that other teachers don't. So it's important, and I want to empower you in these trainings to realize like that's your gift, that's what your special spice is that no one else has, that you'll be able to put on this. So you shouldn't have that eroded out to the point that you're a robot, but at the same time you need to be aware of those habits that aren't really serving you or other people.
Absolutely. I believe that, you know, you have to learn the basics. So maybe at the beginning you will have to have the effort to put not completely but a little bit your personality to the side and teach exactly like we want you to teach, you know. So someone would have to teach the cue, for example, the sun salutation, without any personality in a way. So we'll have to learn: inhale, lift your hands up, exhale, bring your hands by your feet. And when this is, I think, freedom. It's also, yoga is about that. You learn all your rules to get free one day, but without any rules you can be free. The illusion of I am what I am, I am perfect as I am, I do whatever I want. It's not freedom. You have to first take the rules, learn from the great masters, of the past. When you have all these basics, then you can do whatever you want and be free in a way. This is what I think.
It's funny, Iyengar said that as well. I think he said learn the rules so that you know how to break them.
Yeah.
And that's it. You can't just do something. Maybe it works. Maybe if you're the person who comes up with the new way of saying something, fine, but it's a shot in the dark, and I think you need to know what was done. It's the same with artists, If you're an artist, you learn how to paint. If you're a pianist, you learn your chords, and then you can be the creator.
So talent, real talent, is something that unfortunately, I have not. It's something that is one person on a million. There is a person on a million, or maybe even more, that is able, is born with a special talent and doesn't need teachers, doesn't need anybody, So, but unfortunately, let's think that most of us, we don't have this gift, so we have to learn the simple things, the simple rules, and luckily we have a lot of people that did the work for us, like Iyengar and many other teachers in the past that, passed from one generation to another all this knowledge. It's not something that I come up with, it's something that, or you come up with, it's something that comes from, a long story of trial and error, of it's a tradition. So I think we're so lucky to have this tradition, study that, then you can do whatever you want with that. But I think it's a good start, and not start from scratch.
And you can tell, like an example I can think of is, I see some teachers who are so extravagant in their personality, and I do envy that, because they're the kind of teachers that, they're like motivational speakers. They can get everyone up and dance, and the whole room feels that vibration, just like at a concert. But I see some teachers who that's the only thing that they have, and their cueing is so ineffective to the point where they're potentially injuring students. They don't have that awareness. So they have this amazing gift, but they don't have the foundational technique and refinement to be able to make that gift worthy. Because so what if you give someone this great feeling and you can get them to dance and forget their troubles if they're going to get scoliosis or injure themselves because they don't have a basic understanding of anatomy or alignment and things like that.
But also maybe it doesn't sound so exciting, but I don't know if you agree. What I would like to give in the 200, but also in the 300 hours. In the 200 hours teacher training is something very simple, not super fancy, because not everybody can be a rock star, an influencer, this and that. If you do, I hope, if you want to do a 200 teacher training, is because you want to start to be, better at yoga, or just be a good teacher, not the best teacher in the world.
Everyone should go into it with that. You should, if you're going into something because you want to be the rock star, then it's the wrong reasons. You'll probably never make it in that case, because it's humble beginnings. You can go in with a goal and a vision, but you have to go in with that. You have to be a beginner. You have to be humble. So let's think with the 300 hour, what would be some of the differences in that then that you would?
So hopefully in the 300 hours, you already did the 200, so you have all the foundations.
You're already teaching, right? Well, possibly,
Possibly already teaching, or even if you just did your 200 hours, but you have yoga is not your job and you're not teaching, but you still want to go further. I would say in the 300 hours, at that point, you start to be really serious. So first thing, your practice become really daily practice. Maybe you start to incorporate, if you didn't do it before, a seated breath work, a meditation practice. And so we would do that. I would start that even in the 200, but in the 300, this hopefully, gets settled more, a strong personal practice. Then going deeper into all the things that we couldn't do in the 200 hours. So same things, anatomy, Sanskrit, and for example, the sequence, something that comes to my mind now, the sequence in the 200 hours, we just give the foundation, a basic sequence. In the 300, we start to be a little fancy, not too fancy, but we start to be able to teach almost any pose, almost any sequence, different style. Of course, also in the 200, I would give panoramic of the different styles, classical styles, like what is the difference between Patabi Joyce, Ashtanga teachers and Iyengar teachers. There are some differences. And so all the different styles, explore that in the 300, maybe a little more, and maybe getting foundations in the different styles. A thing that I like the students to try is to try different styles. So I like to say at the beginning of the training, like, don't believe anything I say because I say it. Just question everything, and also go take other classes. In Florence, luckily we have a good yoga scene, so you can try Iyengar yoga by the good Iyengar teachers and so on, different styles. You can take an Ashtanga, Mysore class. Go explore and make an idea of the different styles, what is good for you. And what else would you do in the 300? I would think going deeper also in some text, some important text. In the 200 you see the Yoga Sutras, a little bit I would say. In the 300 you have some more, you go a little deeper into this important ancient text. And not only that, but other texts, classical texts, you study them deeper, because after your practice is settled, after you're more into yoga, then maybe you go and you discover a little bit more the philosophy, something that is not doing the postures or even doing the breath work, but is reading something, knowing from taking the knowledge from the from the old text, which are a good way to start.
Yeah, I think it's definitely true, and something I'm very big on is giving people tools, because the 300-hour, whether they've been teaching or not, yoga is going to be an ongoing thing from then on. And 300 hours, 200 hours, it's such a small amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So if you're able to give people these analytical tools so that they can keep furthering their knowledge, it would be pointless if we just spent 300 hours telling them things like, this is this anatomy and this is this philosophy, and it's about sparking a flame or giving them tools so that they can learn during that time, but then afterwards they can keep that growing. So for example, when it comes to anatomy, yes, it would be good to cover a lot more things in more detail, but then also just trying to connect, like, why does anatomy matter for yoga? Are you just saying, reciting anatomy to try and sound intelligent, or is it going to help you teach your students or help you get further into your body? And that's the connection that I think the 300 hours should make. It's not just about the information, it's about how you apply that to yourself. So it's the same with philosophy. So what if you know a particular fable or story about a the origin of yoga, how does that help guide you on your yoga journey and help you guide students on their yoga journey? And I think that's an important differentiation with 300-hour, because the 200-hour is really about, in the simplest way, if someone's going to teach, it has to be safe and it has to be effective. Whereas the 300-hour, you're kind of assuming that they are already safe and effective in their teaching or their practice, and you want to help them take it further.
Yes. Also, something that I didn't mention, but I believe a lot in it, and this comes mostly, I would say, from the Ashtanga tradition, is assisting. So how to touch the students, how to assist them in in posture, especially things that are hard like handstand and headstand and things like that. So how to effectively assist people, I think it's a very important tool to have
just burning the house down
for the new teachers.
Sorry guys, just gonna burn the old villa down. It's crazy, when I arrived here, the weather was so hot that I would have thought a fire was completely unnecessary. But today it's like winter. We're good? No, we didn't burn
it's
anything
almost
down?
off. No.
Should we put another log on? Put a little one.
Maybe
It's hot. It's hot sitting right by this.
Sorry.
So assists. I just assisted you with the fire.
Assists I think are so important because I know that especially now it's a little bit controversial. I heard even before COVID some teachers that they don't want to assist. Hands-on assist students. I believe a lot in it, of course, if you can keep your boundaries, because the student-teacher relationship is very important, and some teachers tend to, of course, have too much of a heavy hand. Anyway, I think assisting is very important to spare time, basically. So if you want to learn, for example, handstand, unless you're a natural, it will take you by yourself. If you just watch YouTube videos, it's possible to learn, but it will take you, if you work hard, maybe, 1 year, 2 years to have a solid handstand. And instead, hopefully, if you meet a good teacher and he helps you, he holds your hips, he tells you, what to do. It will take not 1 day, but maybe 6 months instead of a year, because muscle memory. I put you in the right spot and I try to leave you by yourself. You learn things so much faster with assisting, and also you can go deeper into posture, so stretching postures. So this is a way of traditional yoga, especially I was saying in the Mysore style. The only thing they do, you learn your sequence by heart, and then the only thing that the teacher does is pushing you. And that I think is very effective. So knowing a little, it's a tool, so you can use it or not in your teaching, but I would like to give in the 200 and especially in the 300 hours a lot of ways of assisting, because that's a skill. And I think also it's very important because, like you were saying before, I think it was interesting, like seeing the others, like your fellow students, you learn from them. Not necessarily even from their mistakes, but also from the things where they're good at. So you learn from everybody. This I think it's a truth. So the same way, when you assist someone, you become a teacher and you start to assist different bodies in different postures. that teaches you so much. So in fact you see that it's so assisting is an art, and being able usually a person that is good at assisting is also good in their practice. It's not necessarily true, but the thing go a little bit on parallel routes. So you learn a lot also for your practice to assist people, to assist someone that is good, someone that is not.
Because you have to, if you adjust your own body, you have feedback, right? So you move a knee, you start to feel like, okay, it feels good, it doesn't feel good, I'll stop there with this pressure. When you're doing it to someone else, you don't feel that feedback necessarily. You kind of have to learn, it's an art, you have to learn where the right spot is, and that takes experience, and it's an art to do that.
And I would try to share my experience in teaching this, because you see, it's like everything with experience. You start to see different patterns that repeat. So for example, there is the person that really doesn't want you around, and that's fine, you don't touch that person. Or you see the person that tense immediately and has how do you say, when like the pain level, the pain level,
Yeah.
very very low or very very high. So everybody's different, and you learn from this. Something that maybe we can share with the new teachers or new students is this, like how a different type of person that comes into your class or whatever watches your video, what is their attitude, because you have a certain I don't know, 6, 7, 10 amount of 10 types of person. You have the enthusiast, you have the you don't have a million types, you have a certain amount of characters, and you know that the more you play this game of the teacher, the more you learn from your students and vice versa. So hopefully what we can do is to try to spare time giving our experience, sharing our experience. That's all I would like to.
And I'll add one thing about assists, and then we can wrap it up because we've been talking for a while. But yeah, assists for me, it's a bit of a touchy subject, because like you said, you get teachers where there's this need to assist, because by assisting someone, it's a bit of a power play, and it shows them that you know what you're doing and you're the authoritative figure. And I don't like that. I think assists should be used when they're going to have a beneficial effect. And for me, there's two types. There's assists for sensation, where you might be trying to deepen them into a stretch. And then there's assists for learning. So like where you might help them to realize how to hold their body in a particular way, to reprogram their muscle memory. If they think that their arm is pointing towards the ceiling like that, and you move it up towards the ceiling, that helps them click and realize. But ultimately, you want them to get to the point where they can make those learnt assists by themselves.
Sure.
So they should build that body awareness. And if you keep assisting them, they're relying on a crutch. So you have to almost use that assist in a gentle way to help them move towards their own awareness in that position. But I think there's a bit of a issue out there where people are too much on assist, and you just have to be confident and know how to do it, because you don't want to injure someone. You don't know if someone's walked into that classroom and they're going through something emotional and they don't want to be touched, and you don't want to be the person to cause that issue. So there are tools that you can learn on this training that will make sure that when you do assist, it's effective, it's sensitive to your students, and it's done for the right reasons.
Yes, I think two things. Sometimes you learn how to cue, but sometimes you see that on the person. You can talk as much as you want. You can doesn't do anything. And so sometimes putting the person in the gently, but putting the person in the shape, it's really talks so much.
Because people learn through different ways, right? Some people learn
Yeah.
through touch, some people through sight, sound. So you have to sort of deliver all of those different packages. But yeah, let's wrap it up, because We've been here, I think it's getting dark outside now. But it was nice chatting. I hope that you guys have gotten something out of this, and this is kind of the conversations that we'll have in person when we do these teacher trainings or workshops or retreats, whatever. But thank you so much. Thanks, Guido.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having me.
Lots more chats in the future. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Ciao.
Salute.